All right, it's official. I'm switching over from Svelte to Next.js, at least for this project. In this video, I'm going to explain why I think that's actually kind of a good choice at the moment. And yeah, let's get into it. So basically, there's two reasons for doing this. And these reasons are primarily, firstly, packages, and then secondly, support and kind of AI integration. So this is an app that I built with Svelte here, and the main issue, as you might be able to see, is if I refresh this, I'm trying to use charts in my app. And the thing that people with Svelte always say is, oh dude, the ecosystem isn't even that big of a problem because basically all you need to do is find the JavaScript version and that'll work perfectly. And I found that to be true. So here we're using, what's this called, Mapbox, and it works pretty perfectly. And then we're also using charts.js to render out this chart. But the issue is, you can already see, I resized the page and this chart doesn't necessarily resize to match. I guess it shrinks, but it doesn't grow. And this is kind of a weird problem. I think that the way they normally solve this in packages is that they wrap the chart in a responsive container that somehow tells it to resize, because I guess it's an SVG rather than an actual, HTML, and so it has to be resized in a different way. But this is just frustrating and annoying. I'm trying to create an app, I'm trying to ship an app, and yeah, I want to have some fun and build some cool stuff in the meantime, but the main goal is to build something that makes money and that provides value. It's not to spend, a day digging around trying to get this chart to look the way I want it to. I'd rather use a tool like, and if we come back to my tab here, like SaaS. So if we go to their charts page, they have these beautiful charts. And I've used these before. They were pretty good. I mean, I had some inconsistencies that kind of bugged me. But on the whole, this is an extremely easy way to get charts built into your app. Now, if we look, what I was using for my Svelte app, what I was planning to use is SaaS or SaaS Svelte. But as you see, this doesn't have a charts component. They just don't have charts at the moment, which is fine. But this is almost a perfect ripoff, or not ripoff, it's a replica of SaaS but built for Svelte instead. And so I'm extremely grateful that this exists, and it seems to be working well, but the problem is that the charts don't exist, and there's really no good charting libraries. And of course, this might not be the biggest concern for you, but oftentimes, when it comes to using something like this, when it comes to using something like this chart, or when it comes to using Mapbox, I kind of have to figure it out myself. I have to do a bunch of research and figure out how this needs to work in Svelte, and it's just not the same. Everything has a React wrapper, and it basically just works out of the box with Next.js. And so this is the code that's required to make this map. So what we have, and I already have the coordinates and stuff. We don't have to encode anything. We literally just have to display the coordinates. So we have to create this Mapbox, which is an empty state, the container, and then we create the tooltips, and then we use this big effect here to basically create that map. And once that's rendered, then it gets stuck into this map container. So we do bind this. And it's not that bad, but it took me a few hours to do, whereas when I did this earlier and I was just using the Mapbox, React wrapper, it worked perfectly fine. And so it's just one of those things where, a lot of this stuff is just going to take a little bit longer. And for me, that was okay. I really liked Svelte. I like this kind of paradigm of web development in comparison to JSX. But there's just a lot of compromises that you end up doing like this, where things just take more time and they might not work as well as in the case of that charts.js. Then that brings us on to the next point, which is support. So what I'm kind of feeling the way things are going is in the future, it's going to be very beneficial to use the most popular kind of everything, right? If that makes sense. Basically, with AI, it works better the more training data it has. And that's why if you're asking a question in plain English, it does a really good job of answering that question for the most part. And so when you're using Svelte, especially because Svelte 5 only came out a year ago, oftentimes it doesn't know what it's doing when it comes to Svelte, or it'll just use Svelte 4 code, which doesn't work, or you have no idea what it does because you came from, you started after Svelte 5. It's just a lot more confused. And with React, it is the most widely used web framework apart from just regular like JS, JavaScript and maybe PHP or something. But in general, it's extremely popular, and so it just has really good support. Like AI is really good. They have V0, which is trained on everything relating to Vercel, Svelte, or Vercel, Next.js, SaaS, all the stuff that you're basically probably going to use in your app. And so it just makes a lot of these problems that you come across less annoying. It's still kind of annoying because there's a lot of things that just take, like, use state in React is just way less elegant than state, but in Svelte. But in general, it's just, you just want the best support. You know what I mean? Especially for AI and just getting your problem solved quickly. I think in the future, a lot of these apps are just going to be built mostly by AI with a human kind of telling how the interface and user experience should look. And it's harder to do with Svelte with a smaller framework. And finally, we're going to talk about caching. So this is kind of a overall solution, or I guess statement, because caching is just one of those things in your apps that you might not think about when you're initially building it out, but it is very important. The app that I'm building, I'm using charts, and it requires aggregating a shit ton of data, and that slows down your UI a lot. My previous app where I was aggregating a ton of data, it was very slow because I didn't know about things like suspense or awaiting, sending a promise to the front end. And so with this app, I'm going to be using that, but I want navigation to be smooth once all that data is loaded in and we're not reloading it on every page navigation. And the thing with Svelte is I don't even know how the caching works, right? So I went to this page on the docs. So if you search cache, there's some stuff that comes here. This is the closest one I could think of. And I'm not really sure what this is talking about. It looks like there's like one section on caching where you can do something with the headers and it'll control the cache. But I'm not an expert in web development. I don't even really know how caching works. I want to just use Next.js use cache. The use cache directive, it is kind of nice. If I can just change that and have it and know that it's going to be cached for, an hour or whatever, that's extremely nice. And so caching is different in 14 and 15. What you really, Next.js 14 is just more aggressive, and so people would get issues where they're not understanding why things are cached, and it would look like it was a bug. Next.js 15, they made it a lot more clear, so they have the use cache directive, which I think solves a lot of this stuff where you kind of tell Next.js when to cache something. But, in general, I don't really think, in 14 it's fine not thinking about it, so I don't really care which version I use. But I did have to decide on which version to use for packages. So I'm using SaaS, and I think Next.js 15 has been out for almost like a year, and initially they were using React 19 release candidate, and now it's actually React 19 stable. So that came out in December, just a few weeks ago. So React 19 is now kind of stable, and a lot of packages have already adapted it because of it being the default Next.js React version for a while. And so I think it's pretty good to just go with Next.js 15 now. Obviously there's going to be bugs, and it pisses me the fuck off that every year there's a new version. It's not an iPhone. We don't need a new version. We need it to work, It's not gonna slow down like your processor on your iPhone. So that does annoy me, that they're always changing shit. But in general, I think just going with the newest stuff, trying to get all the package support that you can, just really makes development faster, and you end up getting a better result. I really want to use SaaS. Dude, I built so many projects where I build all my components from scratch, and then I think about SaaS and I go, wow, I could have saved so much time if I just used this package, this tool. And same thing goes with charting. Like, I'm not trying to set up a shit ton of charts.js wrapper files to style each chart individually. I'd rather just use Shadchan charts. So yeah, when it comes down to like building your project, I think it's good to use Next.js. It depends on what you're doing. If you're just doing a basic website, I would probably use Svelte. I really like Svelte. I think it's fast and very nice to write in. But for more complex stuff, I think Next.js really is the move. So anyways, that's my video. I'm probably going to use Svelte in the future, for basic stuff like websites, whatever. But for the meantime, it's going to be Next. I'm out.